Give me a minute. Gotta adjust my legs real quick. Hello, humans. Today I want to talk about my OCs. Yes, OCs. More character is a Rainworld OC. Yep, I have Rainworld OCs. Wait, no, you already knew that because my other video, but I have more Rainworld OCs. This OC is called Iron Mule. He's a green lizard and he wears clothes. Yeah, clothes. Even though technically nothing in Rainworld is supposed to wear clothes, he wears a coat and pants. I forgot if they're beige or tan. I don't really know the difference. But he also wears a very long scarf around his neck. Why? Because it's cold as frick in his world. Why? Because it's in an AU. Shut your mouth. Next character. This one has a connection to another character. His name is Ronald. Why? I have no idea why I named him that. He's just a guy who turned evil and created a force called the Corruption. Basically, the Corruption is a black substance that turns humans into black humanoid creatures with a very intense desire to infect everyone else around them. Yeah, that's mostly all he did. And also he has a blade arm, and his arm that isn't a blade arm is a clawed arm. He usually wears a suit and has a crazy obsession with holding power over other people, which is the reason why he created the Corruption in the first place. His eyes are completely hollow, and they appear to be cracked. Instead of actual eyes, he just has yellow glowing pupil things and a glowing orb in his mouth. He also has an intense hatred for Kawa, a weird cat creature monster thing that has white fur and dresses really weird. Speaking of Kawa, we should probably start talking about them. Like I just said, Kawa is a weird cat creature, and their name is supposed to sound like kawaii, except it's not kawaii, it's Kawa. Why Kawa? Because I thought it'd be funny, honestly. Kawa wears pink clothes and even arm warmers. They have white fur, although I'm pretty sure I already said that, and they have a pretty limited control over the Corruption, having it be part of their own body. They intend to kill, or at least take the Corruption from Ronald and use it to reverse the entire corruption on the world. Why? Because Kawa's just a nice guy. And despite Kawa's name, Kawa doesn't actually try to be cute at all. It's kind of just their personality. Although they also can show very heavy aggression, and their favorite food is birthday cake. Why specifically birthday cake? You may never know. The next OC is Open Your Eyes, who is a creature who used to be a slugcat but was corrupted by something. It is completely black in color and has completely glowing white features. Based on their glowing white features alone, they have more human shaped eyes. They have an eye on their forehead, a hat with a buckle on it, and a jacket. However, it's pretty hard to tell considering everything on them is black. They also have claws and can use the eye on their palm to attack. How does this work? Basically, he controls you. Open Your Eyes can only harm you if you actually see him. And actually, the original body of Open Your Eyes was from a female slugcat and not a male. However, their gender was changed soon after because Open Your Eyes, not the slugcat, the actual creature that took over them, was a male. They also have a direct connection to another OC that I wanted to talk about called Counter. Counter is a blue slugcat, Although, I don't know what exactly color they are, since I don't actually study the colors I use, I just use them. He is a very light blue slug cat with black eyes, and instead of the usual white pupils I draw slug cats with, he has white rings instead of white pupils for pupils. What? Okay, that sentence made no sense. He wears a more pale but slightly darker version of his own skin color as his coat jacket color. What? What am I saying? His jacket has a very high collar, and his pants are black. And I know I said slow cats aren't supposed to really wear clothes because they don't in Rain World, but it's my freaking OC, so let me do whatever I want. Counter fought and eventually killed Open Your Eyes, although instead of actually genuinely being able to kill them, they were only able to temporarily disable Open Your Eyes, who eventually will come back. In an alternate universe, Counter didn't get so lucky and was captured and possibly killed by Open Your Eyes. Counter's ability is being able to parry anything that he can react to. If he can see it coming, he can parry it. However, if Open Your Eyes was to suddenly appear in his vision, he could, in fact, take over Counter. It is highly unlikely this would happen, though, since Counter is very good at noticing things. That's why I say in an alternate universe, because this would genuinely never happen in the canon. In the alternate timeline, what happened was that Counter was caught off guard by tentacles from Open Your Eyes abilities and was literally wrapped in tendrils before something happens, although I won't say exactly what because I want to leave that up to your imagination. The next OC is Switch, who at one point did encounter Counter, but wasn't really interested in talking to them. The two don't even know each other's names. However, Switch's ability is being able to switch to positions and literally any quality of something. If Switch wanted to, he could even switch someone's gender, although it is highly unlikely that he'd do that. And Switch isn't even a guy. Switch is more like what you get when somebody completely forgets that gender exists. He doesn't actually use any pronouns. However, he is used mostly because of his rather masculine build. Beating Switch is impossible since he could simply switch off your intention to fight him. Switch's right side is blue and his left side is a very light red. He wears a indigo coat and a red sort of scarf. However, this scarf isn't likely actually a scarf, and it's hard to know because nobody's actually touched it. However, I'm going to spoil the secret. It's actually just his neck fur. He doesn't actually wear a scarf. And now the OC you've all probably been waiting for, Yick. Yick is the father of 02 and 05 and all the other defaults. I already talked about them in my other video, but I'm going to remind you of them. 02 is a regular skull cat, although he wears a black coat with a white undershirt and a black hat. And 05 is just a regular super fox, like, well, any other super fox, except he wears a gray suit, although it's more like a jumpsuit. Yeah. Yick is the father of these two, and the father of many more defaults. He abandoned both, although this was mostly because he kept making mistakes and wanted to forget them. He's not a bad person, although he has made some bad choices, and he regrets every single one of them. Although Yik did, in fact, try to love 02 and 05, his mistakes were mostly not being home enough for them. He was usually working, and because of that, he wasn't usually home enough to talk to them. This led to 02 being spiteful. However, after making 03 and 04 and failing with both, he made 05, where he finally was able to somewhat talk to his children. And he still managed to mess up because he wasn't home a lot and didn't physically play with his kids, which means that, well, he still ended up making mistakes, and he continued to make mistakes. So, yeah. If Yik was to be confronted by 02, he would instantly try to act like he had no idea who 02 was. However, with enough prying, he would admit that he was in fact the father and immediately break down in tears afterwards, realizing that he'd completely screwed up his child's life. Although he technically already has realized this, he just doesn't try to remind himself of it because it is a memory he simply doesn't want to, well, remember. And now for an OC you probably never were expecting. I have an Everything is Fine OC. I can't really remember his name because I don't really use him much, but his name is Vincent, if I remember correctly. He's an African American man, and he dresses in a white shirt with a green vest and a yellow cat mask. Is he loyal to the state or system, whatever? I forgot what it actually was because I haven't talked about Everything is Fine in a while because I kind of lost interest in trying to read it after a while. All I know is it's pretty cool and you should check it out on Webtoon if you can. So, yeah. For my OC named Shady, spelled Shadii. Shady is a shadow man / creature and has glowing white eyes and a zigzag type mouth. He's currently the mascot of a burger place in his realm, and he was previously the mascot of a fictional company named Shadow Phone, who was supposed to supposedly keep all your information safe. However, the company was shut down after multiple people reported being stalked by a, and I quote, creepy shadow man who was Shady. Shady is a very lonely type of guy, and once he's binded to you, he will follow you practically forever. The only way to get him off of you is to either A, kill him, or B, be killed by him. However, it is highly unlikely you will actually be killed by Shady, and you're much more likely to see him flee once you start showing any signs of aggression. Shady is also friends with another device-based entity called Searchar, but for now I'm going to continue talking about Shady. Does Shady enjoy being a mascot? A little, but he isn't treated very well by the people at the restaurant. He is treated only as a mascot and not as a actual person / employee. He still has to make burgers and entertain kids, but he's not paid at all, and he has to listen to whatever customers tell him to do, even if it made him uncomfortable. In terms of mental, like intelligence and awareness, Shady is only around 8 years old, but is about as tall as your average 20-year-old. And then there's Searchar, who I mentioned earlier when talking about Shady. Searchar is much more aggressive than Shady, being a complete opposite of Shady's appearance. Shady actually wears clothes, that being a red sweater and some maroon pants. At least I think that's maroon. I didn't actually study the color. His skin is completely white and his head is actually genuinely round if you were to see him in real life. He has a zigzag line, much like Shady's, and his eyes are completely hollow. At least they look hollow. If you were to genuinely touch his eyes, he would still feel that. Searchar is genuinely aggressive and will kill you if he is to pursue you, unlike Shady, who simply annoys you and drives you to insanity with his constant pressuring. Searcher will actually attempt to kill you. Wait, I already said that. However, the way he kills you mostly depends on how you aggravate him, since Searchar doesn't genuinely want to kill you in most cases. However, once you get on his nerves, he will not stop until you are no longer a threat. And to him, no longer a threat means no longer alive. Searchar is a better search engine, at least that's what the company's motto is. But they also state that they are not responsible for any injuries or stalker incidents caused by using the search engine, which is a direct reference to how Searchar has been known to stalk people who use the app, which is a metaphor for how companies steal your data and spy on you. Now let's talk about Merc, who is a mercenary in and he's a Cage of Paradise OC. Well, he was a mercenary. His whole deal is that he was betrayed by Laminax, at least I think that's what the company's name was, while working for them, and was turned into a witch brew after he was lied to and told the drinks were safe. He was told this lie directly by a company, and they exploited his genuine thirst because they hadn't let him drink water for a while. Since he had no other choice but to drink this witch brew, soda, or literally die of thirst, he drank it. And soon turned into a freaking witch brew, which you know if you actually played Cage of Paradise. He still wears his old mercenary clothing and still smiles. However, he actually is still dangerous, although that is probably a given. However, he is more likely to attack actual, like, Gotraxians than humans. Or, well, they're called Raytraxians now because they're too afraid to be compared to changed. And if you know, you know. The final OC is Cat, a very, very frail kitty. They're a humanoid cat person with blue hair but white fur. Their eyes are a very light blue, and they constantly smirk. Their weapon of choice is a knife. And they, like I said, are very frail. They are better at fighting with weapons and are very swift. However, hit them one too many times and they probably will be knocked out. So, yeah, an average Joe could beat them if you could get past his enraged knife swings, because his only defense mechanism is that he gains adrenaline super, super fast, and it's very, very effective. However, this doesn't stop him from being physically frail, which means even if he braces, you can still knock him out in a few good punches. Freaking bye.